Good evening and welcome to Suffering in Silence with Evangelist Tia here on Left Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We're here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. Left Bay family, we're rising out of the ashes together. Our topic on this evening is new beginnings. And I've just felt really good about this all week. I just really have. I think there's just something special even in just saying it. New beginnings, saying it and owning it and just believing it. I think it's just awesome. It's amazing. So I've been really looking forward to this. We have with us our co-host on this evening, Erin Mitchell and Mark Daria. Listeners, if you have any questions or comments for myself or any of our co-hosts, you can email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com, or you can text us at 437-778-3299. Also, if you have any resources that you would like to share with us on a national or local level from your country, your community, your faith organizations, or any other resources that you want to share with us, you can also email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com. And with that, Mark, I would go first and greeting our listeners and viewers on this evening.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Welcome. Great to be here again. Good to see everybody. Erin, hi.
Hi, Mark.
Good to see you again, too. So I'm looking forward to this evening. I think there's a lot of room to talk about things and obviously a lot of good information that I think is going to get out there. And let's be positive and let's start the new year in the middle of the year.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's perfect what you just said. That's the thing about new beginnings. You can start new whenever you want. It doesn't have to be January 1st, whenever you want.
Yep.
So, Erin, you want to greet our guests and our viewers and listeners on tonight?
Definitely. Thank you, Evangelist Tia. Hello. Hi, everybody from Love Bay and all the listeners to Suffering in Silence on this Friday, or maybe a different day, wherever you are dialing in from all over the globe. So good to be in this circle of, again, just positive talk, solutions, straight talk about challenges, and then really just coming together to find positive ways to take steps in our lives wherever we're at. So I'm on the board of Evangelist Tia's organization, Rise Out of the Ashes, and I've been a part of it now, really in this community for a few years, and I continue to learn from each and every one of you, and it's our listeners out there that really give us the space, to have these conversations, because I think listening is one of the best ways we can gift the world, something really special. If we don't have listeners that really have the patience to be present to conversations, then we really can't heal as an individual or a community. So we need good listeners, and that's why we love each and every one of you for tuning in. So thank you for listening tonight, and we hope this conversation is something that you can take to your own community, your own families and friends. New beginnings is a really close. It's a topic that's really close to my heart, because I have had so many, I feel like, chances, and that's one of the ways I see new beginnings as having a part of my life, is having another chance, a second chance, again and again. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Tia.
Thank you so much. So before we begin, as usual, we want to share some resources. Again, Love Bay, I want to put that ask out there to support us at Rise Out of the Ashes, Inc., our nonprofit. Erin sits on my board. Jen is my vice president, and Bob is our president. And speaking of which, Bob is doing some extracurricular activities on this evening, so he won't be with us. And Jen is in Romania. So a shout out to Romania, where Jen is. We want to remember them on tonight. But again, our nonprofit, Rise Out of the Ashes Inc., if you would like to help us and support us in that, you can go to GoFundMe and you can look for our nonprofit, again, Rise Out of the Ashes Inc. You can donate online that way. You can write a check to Rise Out of the Ashes Inc., and we are at P.O. Box 15, Drexel Hill, PA, 19026. And again, the biggest thing that we do as of date is our emergency funding, helping individuals financially with needs that come up pertaining to issues dealing with the domestic violence and intimate partner violence situations that they may find themselves in. Along with that, we want to share Pastor Darius Daniels. He's the pastor of Change Church. He has several locations in the United States. His website is dariusdaniels.com. His YouTube channel is Darius Daniels TV. In Australia, we want to share the National Family Violence Counseling Service. Their website is www.1800respect.org.au. Their phone number is 1-800-737-732. In Canada, we have the Canadian Women's Foundation. Their website is canadianwomen.org. Their number is 1-866-293-4483. And in the UK, we have the National Domestic Abuse Helpline. Their website is nationaldahelpline.org.uk. Their number is 0808-20-00247. Or you can visit Women's Aid, AID, and their website is womensaid.org.uk. And with that, Love Bay, we move into our topic on tonight, which is new beginnings. And as we alluded to previously, there is always a chance to start something new in your life and move forward, whether we term it as a second chance, a third chance, a fourth chance, or literally the first time, just completely new. There is always a chance to take up a piece of your life, a part of your life, or your life in a whole, and move forward. And for me, this time of year has always meant newness for me. Even as a child, I always just felt something new when it was time to go back to school, when the weather was changing, the fall is coming in. And I don't know why, but I always had that feeling. And it's not just, elementary school, it's middle school and high school and college. And it just seems to me that new things start happening during this time of year. But I think tonight, one of the things that I wanted to emphasize is that you don't have to wait for a specific time of year. You don't have to wait for there to be a change in seasons, but you can create that newness in yourself and for yourself whenever you're ready to. So whenever it is, you don't have to wait until you see the leaves turn and they start falling off the trees and, it's getting a little cooler outside. But you can start your new beginning whenever you're ready to. So that is something that I really wanted to emphasize on tonight. And so, Mark, I'll throw it to you first to start us off and give us your insight on new beginnings.
Sure. I think you stole most of the good lines because I totally get the whole fall thing. I mean, September used to be, I'm old enough to remember the beginning of the television season, used to be in September.
Yeah.
You'd wait for that TV guide to come out so you could see all these new shows. And the Montgomery Ward and Sears Christmas catalogs were coming. And
yes.
You're going back to school and you get to see friends. You weren't crazy at school, but you were happy about the friends. So I mean, it is that September feeling is just something else. But you're also right in that kind of thing can be any day. And I remember I'm thinking about the conversation tonight, and I saw a quote from Mary Pickford. I just want to read it real quickly. It's great. It says, "You may have a fresh start at any moment you choose. For this thing that we call failure is not the falling down, but the staying down." And I think that's a really good launch point for, at least for me to go from, is that, a lot of this, so much that we see is the fear of failure, the fear of what comes next. As I love to teach in my classes, one of my recurring themes, doesn't matter whether it's political science, history, or sociology, or whatever it may be, is that change is the only constant in the universe. Yeah. So you better make yourself comfortable with it, because even if, even for those of us that have the same job or, whatever it may be for 10, 15 years, there's going to come a day, and it can be just like that company goes out of business, you get laid off, fill in the blanks, doesn't matter. But change is inevitable. And it's how we choose to cope with that and how we're prepared for that and what our mental attitude is that has a lot to do with whether or not we're successful. Now, on this program, we're talking about a lot heavier things than losing a job. So keep that in perspective. But I mean, I was just catching up on some of the shows that you were doing, and I happened to have both of you I was watching this morning. Great show from a couple of weeks ago. It was really great. I forwarded it on to a couple of people I was thinking of that could really have used it. And it's just that whole the support network. Again, and we've echoed it in this venue before, but just to echo that whole concept of we need to have people that we can trust. We need to have people that can understand and not judge. We need to understand that we're not accountable. We're not responsible for what other people do to us, and that they bear that responsibility. And those are the kinds of things we have to keep in our minds. And it's hard to do when you're flying solo. So, surround yourself with the people that are going to build you up and hold you up. And you in turn have to do that with them when they're facing their crises in life. So let me put a stop on that, because I'll just keep going for another 42 minutes.
That is awesome. Thank you so much, Mark. Erin, you want to jump in there with your thoughts on New Beginnings?
Yeah, really, again, I think everything's been covered here. So, no, I mean, so Mark, you can go ahead. 42 minutes. Go. New beginnings. Oh my gosh. I mean, I just for me, it's been a lot of, I moved west from the East Coast. I lived in Baltimore for 17 years. Before that, I was in New York for 10. And I moved west, and I started off in Tucson, Arizona. And that was like a new beginning to me. I didn't know anybody. I was going to try a whole new field of work. And that was, those are big. Getting divorce papers is huge. It's like, even though you start, I mean, for me, I started the process years prior, but once that paper comes in the mail, it's, that feels really new.
Beautiful feeling, though.
Really new. Yeah. Well, it depends,
well,
right?
In my case, it was.
Yeah. So, we don't, it's not always a joyous new beginning. But sometimes, they're new beginnings nonetheless. And I think Mark, you pointed to something where it's just how you take it, right? Like how you approach whatever that change is. And the quote was beautiful. Staying, on the ground is failure, not the change itself, not the loss itself. And so, for me, I have to create a lot of ritual around new beginnings so that I'm reminded of that. I don't have a budget for flowers necessarily, but either I'll go to the farmer's market and get fresh flowers for my writing table and altar. I have my dad's ashes here with me, and I get fresh flowers every week. And if I don't have the money, then I'm cutting wild ones and putting them in water, or like even herbs. You can just trim some rosemary and some parsley and put them in water. My mom used to do that. That reminds me, like it's a new week. It's and lighting a candle, or things like that. I think for me too, I love a new journal. I mean, I have so many journals that are like 3/4 of the way full because I like can't wait to get the fresh one. And so I leave like so many pages at the end of my journal because I just like, I can't finish it, but I got to get that new one because I'm ready. Like I'm so ready to have a new conversation with myself. You know, and the new journal carries with it like new ideas, fresh starts, different creative ideas that I have, and that will, you know, a fresh page will bring up that for me. So and yeah, I recently tried 30 days alcohol free, and that was like, you know, that was a new beginning. You know, day 1, day 2, you know, that was kind of things like that, exercise programs, or if you're just cutting something out of your diet. These are ways, again, that I engage in the process of giving myself a fresh start. And I do think there is something so meaningful about that, that, you know, is age old. It's age old. So yeah, that's what birthdays are all about, right? You know, like
Absolutely. So I wholeheartedly agree, and I want to emphasize, you know, picking up on a point that you made. Sometimes our new beginnings are painful, but it doesn't mean that it will stay that way. So sometimes we do start off, whether we want it to or not, in a new situation or new circumstance, and it's painful and hurtful. But if you deal with it, if you go through the process, then you will get to that point to where you're feeling better, you're moving better. You know, I won't say we're ever 100%, everything is just marvelous all the time. But sometimes we have to go through that dark spot to get to that lighter place. Um, and another point that I wanted to make is that a new beginning, it doesn't have to be that you're moving to a place. It doesn't have to be something has happened, or things have come to you. A new beginning could be just a decision that you made. And for me, I can look back in my life, and specifically if we're dealing with the area of domestic violence, for me, a new beginning happened when I was just honest about, this is what has happened to me. This is what I'm going through. So for me to sit in that moment, that was a new beginning. It was hard, it was hurtful, but that beginning got me to another step. Because then I got to the step of where, all right, now I know I need help. And then I started reaching out for help. That was a new beginning. And then developing my support systems, as Mark alluded to earlier, everything was a new beginning. And in that stage of my life, it was very, very hard and it hurt. But doing those things got me to where I am today. Um, you know, even starting the process of a divorce, I mean, that was not fun. It's not what I wanted to do. I mean, if you think about the reason why it happened for me, in my case, that was all a part of the domestic violence and getting away from it and moving on in my life. That was all hurtful, but I had to make a decision. And so, again, I want to emphasize, a new beginning may be just you making a decision. Whatever it is, it may be you just sitting down, being honest with yourself. It may be you picking up the phone, calling for help. It may be you just searching through the resources that we provide, just getting information, just finding out, getting some definitions. Like, what does it mean to set boundaries? What does it mean when someone is love bombing you? What are some red flags? And it's not always finding or searching for the things that are hurtful, but what things are positive. What does a good relationship look like? What does a healthy friendship look like? That's a new beginning. If you decide, I want to know this information. And not only do I want to know it, once I know it, I'm going to apply it to my life. So new beginnings don't have to be what we would think or feel are some things that are just on a grand scale. Like, all right, Erin, next week we're going to meet up and we're going to Paris. Like, no, our new beginning could be, let's just, decide we're going to just check in on each other every once in a while, which is something that we already do. But I mean, it could be something on that level, but it's so powerful because I can tell you, for me, like Erin being a part of my support group is something is very helpful. It's amazing. When I need her, she's there. I hope that I'm, available and helpful when she needs me. But that right there, it's a small thing, but so much empowerment comes from that. Just from making a decision and from, being with Erin, knowing Erin, understanding Erin, all right, this is a good person to be in my circle. That right there, that was a new beginning, for me. So I really want to emphasize and I want to encourage individuals. You don't have to look for those things that are on a grand scale. It could be as simple as you looking yourself in a mirror and saying, I have a problem and I need to do something. Mark, I'll give it to you now.
Okay. Yeah. Again, great synopsis. Although I have to say, I've been chomping at the bit for Erin, who leaves a chunk of that journal unfilled at the end. And I gotta say, that's a subconscious. We're gonna get psychological here. That's a subconscious issue, and actually dovetails with what we're talking about, because you're tacitly acknowledging that there is always more to the story. How do you like that? That's where the drum goes in the background.
I love it. That's so cool. Yes, that is a fact.
Yeah, I mean, joking aside, there really is. I mean, and I love that you're going. I got to get a new journal because I've got so much to say. It's wonderful. But I want to read those journals. It's going to be interesting.
But, someday, Mark, they'll be on the shelf.
Yeah.
Or on Amazon shelf.
There you go. Exactly. But Tia, you were saying something about light in the tunnel, and I again, thinking about this week, I was reading something, and I love the quote. It said, "If you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, maybe it's just time for you to dig a new hole out." And I thought that's and I loved it because it really it's thinking outside the box, right? And so often when we are faced with problems and difficulties, we get into the rut, right? We're thinking, okay, yeah. I have to move in this direction. I have to move in this line. Are there legal issues? Are there familial issues? Are there, relationship issues? We have to just keep doing all this stuff, and we're trying to put everything and tie it up with a bow. And sometimes we just got to take a step back and look at that box and say, maybe this isn't a box worth living in. Maybe I should just do something different. Maybe I should just, I don't know, do what's right for me. And I'm not self-indulgent. I'm not preaching self-indulgence and, hurt people around you. I'm not saying any of that. But I'm saying I think sometimes we make decisions because we don't want to upset the apple cart when it needs to be upset. There are real reasons, domestic violence, etc. There are real reasons when, the apple cart needs to be upset. Each circumstance unique and each circumstance different. But that's where we go dovetail again. This is where we bring in that support network, people that you can trust, people who have your best interests at heart, not their own agenda, not their own best interests. And that's difficult. It's difficult. Opening up to people, trusting people, because the truth is, and we should say it very clearly and very upfront, you open up to people and you trust people, some of them are going to burn you.
Yes.
Some of them are going to burn you. Not everyone is going to be in your corner all the time and be there for you. So you take a chance. But having said that, taking a chance is really your only option, because none of us can do it alone. None of us can do it solo. And I know I've spoken before about my own past. I think, I was flying solo for a while, and I was living on a friend's porch, when I was 16, 17 years old. Because my home life was just that crazy, and it wasn't bad compared to a lot of people's. But if I hadn't mentioned it to a friend of mine in passing, who he was like, no, there's no way you could be doing any of this stuff. And I just blew him off and said, yeah, never mind, forget it. I even said anything. And I know I mentioned it to you, Tia, Erin. I don't think you've heard the story, but he went home and told his mother and father. And and my friend's father came up and got me at 1 a.m. and slapped me on the head as I'm sleeping on a neighbor's porch, because they had one of those swing sets, one of those big swing sets. So I could go there from about midnight till about 5 a.m. and sleep on that, and no one would know. And he slapped me and with some profanity laced. I grew up in New York, so profanity laced expletives. Told me to get down to his house and get into bed, and it started a relationship of a surrogate family, one of two in my life that have endured to this day. And I wouldn't be where I am today without those two family units, who had nothing to do with me by blood, but they're by choice. And there's lessons in there for everyone listening. It's just having the right people in your life is incredibly important.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Mark, I mean, your story is just amazing, and everything that you said, it's just awesome. And I really want to emphasize one of your points was, doing something different does not mean that you failed. It does not mean that you failed. And doing what you need to do for yourself, starting your new beginning, you may very well upset the people around you. I guarantee, if you're saying, I am not dealing with this anymore, I'm not dealing with the domestic violence, I'm not dealing with the sexual assault, I'm not dealing with someone harming me anymore, I am going to do what I need to do for myself. Somebody around you is going to be upset. And you know what? So what? Because you need to do what you need to do for yourself. So everybody may not be happy about your new beginning. Yeah. And that's okay. And you have to be okay with standing on your own 2 feet, making a decision that is best for you, and moving forward. Don't let others stop you. Family, friends, colleagues, co-workers, anybody on the outside trying to judge and advise you, and they don't know the whole story. And even if they do, again, so what? Your new beginning is very well what may save your life. Your new beginning may very well be what will prolong your life. Your new beginning may be what is going to get you from one point to the next. So you do it. So again, doing something different, it does not mean that you failed. Reaching out for help, it does not mean that you failed. And I've had to tell myself that several times. My issue and what I've gone through, I didn't break my family apart. I didn't abuse me. I didn't break my home. My ex did that. He made a choice. He had a choice on what he was doing. He had a choice to keep the family together. He had a choice to be the husband and the father he was supposed to be. I had to make a decision. I'm not taking his stuff on my shoulders. I'm not doing it. And it's hard. It's not easy. But again, doing something different does not mean that you failed. And I would argue that if you don't do something different, that if you don't step into that new beginning, I believe that would put you in a place, or keep you in a place, where failure will become the only option that lies before you if you do something different. So thank you, Mark, for what you shared. Those are absolutely great points. Erin?
Yeah, I think, Mark, something you said about you have to take the risk is really, so do you want to explain a little bit about how you do that? Because I'm a little touchy on that situation.
Yeah, I mean,
tell me how to do that, Mark.
I'm surprised to hear you say that, because just listening to your own story, picking up and moving across country, that's something I've done. I grew up in New York. I moved to college. I went to college in California. I've lived in several states in between. I've lived overseas, both as a student and through the military. So, I mean, every one of those things can be paralyzing, right? You can be frightened, but making the decision to do them, taking a new job, right? Moving from a job. How many people hate, one of the water cooler joke, right? Everyone hates their job. They hate their boss. And, let me just back it all up. I grew up in New York. I love the place. I wouldn't want to live there. And sorry, New Yorkers, listeners in New York, I'm not trying to down it. There's no place in the world I would have rather have grown up, but I grew up with so many people and so many families, so many adults, not necessarily my peer group, but their parents who hated their lives. And it was always a story about how the system has done something to them. And, circumstances got them. Their girlfriend got pregnant. Gee, I wonder how that happened. And so they had to marry her, and now they, and these terrible things that, you almost wanted to say, I'm sorry. And then you stop and you say, but wait, who did that to you? What stopped you from saying no or moving in a different direction? So you didn't do this, you didn't take that job and it turned out to be something special, or you did take a job and you can't get away from the job you're in because learn a new skill, do something, become an apprentice. There may be short-term pain involved, right?
Yeah.
If you become an apprentice, you may not be getting a paycheck for a while. And if you have a family, that becomes difficult. I understand. I'm saying everything is unique. Everything has to be thought through. But to sit there 20 years down the road and say, life has handed me everything wrong and there's nothing I could have done to change it, which are conversations I had, essentially, paraphrasing, is the wrong message. You mean there's nothing you could have done to make your life better? Nothing? And I resolved, if there was any wisdom in any of that, it was when I was a kid, when I was very young, I realized, no, I'm not going to be that guy. As much as I love these people, as much as they're great parents and they take care of their children and they go to work in the morning and feed their family, they're doing all the right things, but they're hating every minute of it. I'm not going to be that guy. I don't want to look at myself in the mirror when I'm 75, 80, 90 years old, if I would make it that far, and say, I wish I had, and fill in the blank. And I can sit here and tell you tonight that there is nothing that I could sit and look in the mirror and say, I wish I had. Now, it hasn't always worked out the way I expected. It hasn't always worked out the way I planned. And you know what? I'm actually grateful for that. Because even though it's gone different directions, I'm happy. I'm comfortable in my own skin. I like who I am. And that's important. Because I actually had a friend I was talking to, I said, before you can actually help somebody and do something, you got to love yourself. Yeah. And she said, that's egotistical. I said, that's narcissism. And I said, no. And I said, you're not understanding what I'm saying. I'm not in love with myself. I love myself. That's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable. I have done things. I always try to do the right thing. Not saying I always do, but I try to do the right thing. Why? Because it's the right thing. And I think that pays off in dividends, because even if the people you're trying to make aware of that don't notice, other people notice on the periphery. And I've had more than once, I've had people come to me and say, you didn't have to do that. Saw what you did. And whether the people that should have taken note or should have said something didn't notice or didn't care or didn't acknowledge. And, you wind up making different relationships and different connections with people that you never knew were there and never saw coming. And that's part of the beauty of life. It's part of the mystery of life, Erin. And so that's what I'm saying. Take those risks. Always ask yourself, what's the right thing? And do that right thing. Most of the time, it won't be acknowledged. But every now and then, someone will tap you on the shoulder and say, wow, thank you. And then you go, that was worth it. I'll have to do that again.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you say that, in terms of what you said, you would never be that person that hated every minute of it. Oh, that's good, right? Because you can kind of get into that syndrome of doing the right thing, but if you're hating doing it, then that's a whole other
beast, I guess, So
Well,
yeah.
you guys were talking about it on your last, again, it's fresh in my mind because I watched it today. But, you were talking about how don't engage people who can't help themselves. They can't be helping you if they can't help themselves. And there's so much truth to that. And sometimes people are doing it for control. Sometimes people are doing it because they just feel like they've got a compulsion to do it because they didn't do it. So therefore you have to do it. There's all kinds of motivations in there. And what we've got to do is we've got to be able to recognize that. And you know what? You can love people knowing that they're flawed. If you know what their flaws are, you know what to expect from them. And there are some people I have in my life that I just know I can't go to with X, Y, and Z. And there are other people who I know I could go to with, A through Z. But that's experience. That's a lifetime of trial and error and there have been people that have disappointed along the way, and some people have shown brilliantly. And it's just something that you got to do. So that's the risk, is every time you trust someone, you risk getting betrayed.
Yeah.
And that's an ugly reality. It's an ugly reality, but it's the truth. But again, even if you're betrayed 9 times and the 10th time you're not, you've got something precious in your hand that you wouldn't have had you not taken the step out on that limb.
Ouch. 9 times.
I think that was awesome. And, and the 9 times is probably a low number because
I'm trying to be optimistic here.
But I think, Mark, that was perfect. I think that was a perfect definition, example of taking risk. And I believe when you take the risk and when you start your new beginning, no matter where it is or what it's in, I think as long as you learn from it and you're able to keep moving forward, that risk is worth it. Because it may not turn out the way that you want to. So again, in my case, when I began to open up, I went through several people, several organizations before I got the help that I needed. I went through several counselors before I realized I had to go to a counselor who was specifically versed in dealing with domestic violence. So part of me taking a risk when I opened up, I learned every counselor can't handle trauma. Every counselor can't handle domestic violence. I didn't know that when I began my process. I shared before, it was like when I was a little girl, I thought a doctor could do everything. I didn't realize until I got older, there are different types of doctors. You have heart surgeons and pediatricians. You have there are different areas. So just because you're a doctor doesn't mean that you can help me. If I have an issue with my foot, I can't talk to you if you do brain surgery. That's not your thing. That's not what you do. But because I took the risk to open up, that's one of the things that I learned. And so I learned who to look for. I learned which direction to go in. So when you don't get the answer that you want, it's like rejection. It feels horrible. It hurts. But rejection actually points you in the right direction where you should go. So I know if I open up to you and I have this conversation and you greet me with some foolishness, all right, I know, not this person. I need something else. Now, yes, that hurts and it sucks and it may start piling up, but I can't let that stop me from trying. So you have to continue to try the different resources, try the different individuals who should be in your support group. And you do have to love yourself. You have to be kind to yourself. You have to give yourself time as you're moving forward. But you keep moving. Sometimes you need to take a break and rest, because there was a point where I needed to just relax and just leave the search for counselors alone. I just needed to catch my breath and just figure out a bit more, learn some more information. But I learned from those risks. I didn't let it shut my heart down where I just completely shut out the world and I just stayed in a situation that I was in. So no, I agree with that explanation, that definition of risk, taking a risk in your new beginning. Even if you're deciding, like for so long, I wanted to go back to school. I wanted to finish my degree. And so I I tried several times. I enrolled in several different schools, and it just turned into a disaster because my abuser was working against me. But when I got into my own space, when I got away from that, I started taking a course here and there, just doing some different things until I got to that point where I was ready to go full fledged back into school to complete my degree. So I wasn't taking a class here and there. But for me, those courses that I was taking, that was a risk. I was taking a chance. Like, can I do this? Because in my mind, I'm thinking, all right, I'm an adult now. I have children. I have a kid in school. Like, can I do this? So taking those courses showed me, yes, I can manage my time. I can get the work done. I can still make sure that, my child is okay, that they're getting their work done. It didn't affect my job. So it was good for me to do that. So again, take the chance. If you want to go back to school, try one course at a time. Redo your resume. Look at some job openings. Whatever you're thinking about, just look. Look at LinkedIn. Look through LinkedIn. Look through Indeed. Ask some questions. If someone is in an area that you would like to work in or that you would like to be educated in, reach out to them. Ask some questions. You definitely can always call any of the hotlines. They're 24 hours if you just want to ask a question. If you just want to throw it out there, you can do that. Just start somewhere. I think we can't be afraid of the risk. We can't be afraid of the rejection because unfortunately, a lot of times it is going to happen, as Mark said before. So I think we just need to accept it. That I don't want to say that's the way of the world, that, bad things are just going to happen every time you try. I don't want to give that impression. But you have to be prepared for things not to go the way that you want. And then you don't let that stop you. So Mark.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, without change, there's no growth.
Yeah.
I mean, and growth is essential. I mean, for us as human beings, we have to be growing. I mean, as you're speaking, I'm thinking of that old Chinese proverb, right? The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step.
Yeah.
And there's so much truth in that and so much wisdom in it, I mean, because we have to move. Again, going back to my earlier statement, change is the only constant in the universe. It's gonna happen. So how do we understand it? How do we manage it? How do we make it work for us? Is what we have to be thinking in terms of. We know it's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another point I'd love to make too is around our brains and rewiring. So just when it comes to change and new beginnings, if you're going to start something new, one of the biggest challenges that our brain has is that we're in a pattern. Our neurons are firing in a pattern, and that pattern is something probably we've been accustomed to for a really long time. And so to make that change, one of the biggest things we can do for ourselves is to do something in the direction of the change that is actually joyful first. It has to be fun first, because if it's, call the police tomorrow and report this, and you have all this anxiety, maybe it's like call your girlfriend that can laugh with you and have tea before you make that call to report the incident, right? Because it's been on your list for how many days, months, years, but maybe you just need to, do something fun first, do something nourishing, and then your brain is rewired in that moment that you move towards that change. And then it's like, oh, okay, we're on the path now. okay, we're going to do this. But if you always put your hardest step first without giving yourself a little bridge, a little slack, that's what makes it really, really tough. I mean, there's studies showing that this is how you actually, get your brain on board with things that your heart really wants to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's important.
Yeah. Well, I think that could even be if you have some ideas, some goals, do a vision board. Write out a list. It's when you decide that you want to have a new beginning. I want to say that also doesn't mean that you have to just get up and go and start doing things right now. It could just be, let me just put my plan together. Let me just get my thoughts out. And I think when you're talking about new beginnings, I think a vision board is a really good idea. You can cut out some pictures from magazines, article clippings, whatever it is that you want, and just put it on a board so you can have it in front of you. Put some scriptures, some poems, some quotes, put it in front of you, and then begin to work towards your vision. And not everything at once. Nobody can do everything at one time. So maybe you just pick one. So part of your vision board may be your finances, getting your finances to where you can have yourself in a better place. So yeah, I think the vision board is a good start. I really do. I think that's just awesome. For me, when I did my vision board, even just the act of doing it, it was fun. I was happy. Um, I was looking at things that were years away from me, but I still had it in my heart and my mind. Like this is what I want to do. Like my house, my car. I had my Camaro on a vision board years ago. I knew I wanted it. I had it there. I would look at it, and I knew I was going to get it. I didn't know how, but it felt good. It felt good. I found the perfect picture, and it was mine. It was all mine. It wasn't somebody influencing me. I wanted a Camaro, so I wasn't going to put up a picture of a Mustang, and I wanted white, so I wasn't going to throw red up there. You know what I mean? It was mine, and if I wanted to change anything, I could change it. If I wanted to add anything, I could add it. I could take it away. So Love Bay on tonight, I say a good place to start with new beginnings, do a vision board. However big or small you want it to be. It's all about you. I think that's my great piece for tonight. Do a vision board.
No, it's great. I mean, both of you have great ideas. The journal, lists. I love lists. I live and die by lists. And sometimes you you get a list of 20 things, and you do something simple like email Tia, and on regarding Friday or something, and you might have a list of 20 things that you got to get accomplished today. You don't get 20 done, but maybe you get 14 done. And some of them are simple, some of them are really complicated. Some of them could take half a day to get done. But at the end of the day, when you can see 14 things crossed off, you have a sense of accomplishment. I guess it goes back to how do we deal with change? And every one of us, and we've come up with different ideas on that. All of them are valid, right? What works for you? If change is inevitable, if we know change is coming at us, if we know change is going to happen, how do we make change work for us? How do we take as much control of that change as we possibly can? Right. And there's a lot of ways to do it. And there's really no one answer to that. Prep for it. And as a single mom, if you know you're headed for a divorce, right? How are you going to survive if you've got a kid or two kids, how are you going to survive? Well, a college degree is not a bad idea. So how do you start prepping for that? What do you need to do? Well, first thing is reach out to a college, right? Find out what kind of classes they might have, how you can maybe you can take a couple, at the community college and get some units that way and roll them in. You start working this plan, even though it's a long-term plan.
Yes.
it might be 3 years, 4 years, like your Camaro, right? It's years before you actually get it, but you got it. It's visual. It's sitting there and looking at you every day when you get up and make your coffee, and you say, that's going to be mine. And it is. And eventually it is. And that's success. And pat yourself on the back for that, because it's determination. It's achieving that goal. And so that's a great thing. And we have to do that. And this is where change works for you. And like I said, sometimes change works against you. Sometimes you can walk in the office and they say we're downsizing. I mean, I'm in finance, and I've watched this happen so many times where the company comes in and they're saying, hey, we're doing great. And I won't mention what companies, but we're doing great. Not a thing to worry about. A month later, they're handing out pink slips. And I know what's coming from where the perch I'm sitting on. And I'm just shaking my head and saying, and why do they do that? Because they're rotten, evil people? No, because they're saying, if we say that, the company is in trouble, who leaves the company first? All the people that can.
Yeah.
All the good people, right? They're running out the door. They're tendering their resumes the next day, and they're hitting up the headhunters, and they're gone in 3 weeks, and now the company's even in deeper trouble. So, I mean, there's a logic to it. It's not malicious per se. But it's a fact of life. And so how do you prepare not to be one of those people, or to have the softest landing possible if you are one of those people? And I think one of the things is we get into this comfortable place where our neurons are firing and every day it's the same thing. And we think, oh, it's been like that for 3 years. I've got no reason to believe it'll ever change. Yeah, but the world is going to tell you something different. It has to change. It will change. And so we have to be ready for that.
Yes. So Mark, I think that was great. And the educational piece was an extremely awesome point, because that's what I did. I originally, years ago, when I first went to college, I started at Drexel University. So when I finally got to Gwinnett, I had my credits that transferred over from Drexel University, but I also took some courses at the community college near me. So I wasn't starting at Gwinnett from scratch. I had my credits from Drexel, and I had my credits from the community college that I went to, when I was trying to get back on track and trying to go back to school. That was a process that it did take years, but this summer I got my bachelor's degree. So it didn't happen overnight, but it did happen. So you can take some steps, and there are some things that, you can do a little bit at a time. Don't despise small beginnings. If you cannot crack the world open right now, it's okay. If you're chipping at it a little bit at a time, if you just make the decision, I'm going to do something for myself. If you make the decision just to be honest, like, this situation is not right. This person is not supposed to be putting their hands on me. This person is not supposed to be talking to me this way. I should not feel like I'm in danger or I'm afraid when I'm near this person. If you make the decision just to be honest with yourself, that's a new beginning right there. That's a first step. And I think we would be remiss if we didn't say, if you don't make a move towards that new beginning, you're just going to stay where you are. And a year from now, you'll be in the same place or worse. And you don't want to do that. So I really want to encourage you to move forward, to do something. It will be frightening. It will be fearful. Change doesn't feel good. Change is scary. Do it afraid. Do it. If you don't, you're going to look up and be in the same spot. So we are at September 6, 2024. Take an honest look at your life. Where were you on September 6, 2023? What has changed within that year? Where do you want to be on September 6, 2025? And what do you need to do to get there? It may not happen overnight, but put your list together. Do your vision board. Think it out. Be honest. And this is really about you. You don't have to call up friends and just start laying out everything before them. I think it really starts with really being honest with yourself I think that is a question, Love Bay, that some of us need to answer for ourselves. Where were you on September 6th, 2023? Where are you today, September 6th, 2024? And where do you want to be September 6th, 2025? I think that's a realistic question. And if we're honest with ourselves, I think it'll bring some perspective. And again, the key word is honesty. I think that will help you to inch closer toward a new beginning. And so, like, that's my thought for this evening, that and the vision board. But with that, Mark and Erin, I want to ask you for your final thought, what you would leave Love Bay with on tonight on those new beginnings. Mark, I'll go to you first, and then Erin. But I really cannot express how important it is, and I feel happy. I feel happy for somebody. I feel like something is happening. Like, even just to make that decision, I really feel like somebody is going to be real with themselves and do something different. And I'm happy about that. I really am. So Mark, what are your final words for Love Bay on tonight?
My final thoughts to you are following up on what you were saying, and that is just fleshing that out a little bit for I know we only got a couple minutes, but finish out for a minute. And that's the juxtaposition of the mindset of the person who doesn't see an out, and that impending sense of failure, of doom, of malaise, of depression, and what that does to your soul and your spirit and your mentality, as opposed to a person who has a plan, even if it's a long-term plan, 3, 4, 5 years, but is implementing change and can see it in incremental steps. And what that's doing to them, they're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. They know that there's an out. They know that there's an end. They know that they're preparing themselves for something better. You don't necessarily have to know what that better is, but you know that something better is coming, and you're working toward that. And it's what that does to your soul, your spirit, your mentality, your emotions. And those are two different things. Like I said, started out saying that, caught Erin's attention is, don't be that person in the mirror at 90 years old who's looking and has a list of things that they never accomplished. Because why? Because they were afraid to.
Yeah, I think my takeaway tonight is just around embracing if change is inevitable, and that is a fact, and change is also a constant, and that is a fact. Really coming up with your embrace, your way to embrace this. So it could be that change is an adventure. Change is exciting. Change gets me to a place I haven't been before. Change, instead of the change is hard and change is, never going to happen. And, so we have all these sayings around the word change. And since we know it's constant, and since we know it's always going to be that way, because that's what life is, we also have to take responsibility to embrace it in a way that works for us. We don't have to lie about it. We don't have to tell ourselves something that we don't believe, but find a way that, that you can say those words and really bring something new to your spirit in that way, so change can be fun. Change might allow you to meet a new circle of people. Change brings often unexpected surprises, things, so you just kind of have to work with it. And I think that that's really important, so that whenever the word comes up, it's not a burden. It's not something where, you're kind of like, oh my God, I don't feel like doing another thing. And that's where those baby steps come into play. And that's where that vision that Tia is talking about with the pictures and just bringing some fun and creativity to it. And then the taking risks falls into place with what Mark was sharing earlier. And so That's all.
Awesome. Thank you both. Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Mark, so much for being with us on tonight. So, Love Bay, we want to leave you with new beginnings. Start your new beginnings. Take some risk. Create a vision board. Make a list. Start journaling. Look at change in a positive manner, even though it may be scary and hurtful, but it can still be positive. Do what you need to do for you. So I thank you both again so much for being here. I appreciated this conversation for myself more than
me too. I was like, oh my gosh, last September 6th, 2023, and to now.
Yes.
Good job, girl. Good job.
Yes. Pat yourself on the back. Love Bay. Pat yourself on the back. If even for those small increments, whatever you have done, wherever you are, the progress that you have made, pat yourself on the back. And if you are not where you want to be, it's okay. Today is a new day. We're starting today. So do that. We really want to leave you with that on this evening. And if you want to catch up on previous episodes of our program, you can visit our YouTube channel, Suffering in Silence DV. But we thank you so much, Love Bay, for joining Suffering in Silence with Evangelist Tia here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We're here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. And Love Bay, we want you to remember that we are rising out of the ashes together. Good evening.